Move that this House stands with the people of Ukraine in their fight to liberate their country from the Russian invasion, offers its continuing support to the 1,500 Ukrainians in New South Wales who have been displaced by the war, condemns Russia's illegal, immoral, unprovoked war which has caused thousands of deaths and the displacement of 14 million Ukrainians. Mr. Speaker, on the 24th of February 2022, Russian military forces entered Ukraine from Belarus, Russia and Crimea. The invasion began 567 days of violence and suffering for the people of the Ukraine. That's 567 days of air sirens, of missile strikes, of burning buildings, burying loved ones, and in many cases fleeing from imminent danger. And it's 567 days of the brave people of Ukraine fighting back to drive the invaders out of their country. As a government, and perhaps more importantly as a democracy, we have a duty to condemn this illegal, unprovoked war. Ukraine, like every other nation, has a right to territorial sovereignty and peace. Its citizens have a right to enjoy their freedom and to practice democracy, to live according to their customs and their traditions. This war has destroyed millions of lives. Just over a year ago, I met with Ukraine's ambassador to Australia, His Excellency Vasyl Marushnichenko. When the war started, the now ambassador was working in Kiev. He was forced to cross into Romania on foot before flying to Australia to begin his term as the ambassador. Now, that kind of grit and determination, I think, exemplifies Ukraine's fight for freedom. Yeah. But while his story is extraordinary, his experience of crossing borders, of fleeing on foot, unfortunately is not unique. 14 million Ukrainians have been displaced by the war. As these terrible events continue to unfold, we're working with the Commonwealth Government to facilitate the resettlement of Ukrainians to New South Wales. Australia has granted 10,000 visas to Ukrainian nationals since early 2022. Since 23rd of February last year, some 1,500 Ukrainian nationals have arrived in this state, in New South Wales. And we want to say, in the halls of Parliament, in private meetings, wherever we meet them, they are welcome. And we're proud to have them. Many have already settled and are making a wonderful contribution to the Australian community. And it's been great to see these new arrivals embraced by the state's existing vibrant Ukrainian expat community. They've been warmly welcomed into the wider community in this state by all Australians. Mr. Speaker, only last week I met with Mr. Daniel Woolody and Andrew Menshinsky, the President and Vice President of the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales. I expressed, I think, and I hope not prematurely, on behalf of this entire chamber, all 93 of us, our willingness to stand with the people of Ukraine in this struggle, to condemn the illegal military aggression and to support the Ukrainian diaspora. In New South Wales, we've got a proud history and admittedly across party lines of helping people when they're in crisis. Since 2015, more than 35,000 refugees have arrived in New South Wales. And by common consent, they're part of a vibrant, dynamic and peaceful state that they call home. But we must never take this peace for granted. Finally, I want to extend the support and a message of support from this Parliament to the people of Ukraine, who are still fighting this very day to liberate their country from the Russian invasion. Mr. Speaker, we don't glorify war and we want peace, but nobody could look at the conspicuous heroism of the leader of Ukraine and his courage, his dedication, his resilience, exemplified by all members of the Ukrainian resistance. It is nothing, we're in nothing but awe and respect of their resistance over the last 500 odd days. Mr. Speaker, Russia's war is a gross violation of international law. Our nation's military aid to Ukraine must be seen in light of our commitment to a rules-based international order. Finally, no parent should have to put their child to bed in fear of an aerial bombardment, but that's a reality that millions of people are living with right now in Ukraine, a democratic country. So we call upon Russia to end this illegal and immoral war and allow for peace to be restored. And on behalf of the government, this Assembly and the people of New South Wales, we are proud to stand with the people of Ukraine.
Yeah. I thank the Premier. I call the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. On behalf of the Opposition, we support the motion and we join with the Premier and the Government in extending our affirmation that this Parliament stands with Ukraine in its continued struggle against Russian occupation and in the fight to liberate its territory. Since the 24th of February last year, for some 19 months, Ukraine has stood fast in the face of invasion and diplomatic coercion. For 567 days, Ukrainians have woken to face another day of air raid sirens, artillery attacks, and the all-encompassing pressure that arises from living so close to the front lines of a contested occupation. Shortages of the essentials, food, water and medical supplies, and power outages have been a daily occurrence. In the midst of this admirable spirit stands the indomitable figure of Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, who's given exemplary leadership to his nation and his people. Facing an existential threat to Ukraine, its citizens have shown extraordinary resilience and fortitude. It's hard to encapsulate in words the disparity between our comfortable surroundings here in Parliament and the reality on the ground in the streets and towns of Ukraine. I acknowledge the help that's been extended to Ukraine to date by the federal government, including the provision of military equipment to the Ukraine Defence Forces and the imposition of targeted sanctions on over 1,000 entities involved in Russia's defence, technology and energy sectors and individuals closely connected to the Kremlin. And we would always welcome more. Here in New South Wales, we've welcomed over 1,500 Ukrainian refugees who've been displaced by the war. And I acknowledge and thank the efforts of all government agencies involved in the safe transportation and resettlement. I offer the Opposition's continuing support for resettlement programs and to individual refugees. In particular, we extend our deep thanks and appreciation to the Ukrainian Council of New South Wales for the crucial resettling service they provide. Among the many stories among the collective diaspora who are now thriving, safe and secure in Australia, I'd like to speak onto the record the individual cases of Valeria and Olga. Valeria and her family evacuated from Kiev in the opening days of the invasion. They arrived here March last year. Since then, they've found stable accommodation and they're determined to contribute to the community that's welcomed them with open arms. Valeria is studying English, working towards rebuilding here in Australia her family's successful landscaping business. They're thrilled that their now 10-year-old, who was homeschooled in Ukraine because of his anxiety, is now attending a local school and making friends with his classmates for the first time ever. Olga and her two daughters have also found refuge in Sydney after fleeing home in Odessa. Like many Ukrainians who've left the country, Olga's friends have been a core support for her and her girls. Having migrated to Australia 20 years ago, they encouraged her to seek asylum and have allowed her family to live with them for the first 6 months in Sydney. With a 20-year career in Ukraine as an accountant, Olga quickly found part-time employment as a finance administrator. She's working towards acquiring the English language skills that she needs to have her overseas qualification and experience recognised here. These two stories highlight the success of Australia as a multicultural nation that's welcomed displaced refugees to our shores for many years. I thank all Ukrainian refugees who've settled here for their bravery and their resilience and for their pride in adapting and giving back to their local communities. The Opposition stands with the Government and the Parliament in condemning Russia's illegal, immoral and unprovoked war, which has caused thousands of deaths and displaced millions of Ukrainians. In line with existing calls from Australia's international partners, we demand that Russia disband its operation and withdraw immediately from Ukrainian territory.
Well, I thank the Leader of the Opposition. In accordance with the resolution of the House, debate is now adjourned.